What's up guys? Today I want to go through my Nudestix collection, swatching all the shades that I have, telling you my favorite products, as well as telling you about some of the products I've tried that haven't worked out for me so much. Ever since discovering this brand personally about a year and a half ago, I have accrued quite the collection, so I have a good solid selection of mostly eye and lip pencils, but a couple of face products in here as well. And I know it's helpful or can be helpful to see those swatches together so you can kind of get a feel for how they look in person versus online. So gonna be swatching all of these and then just generally giving you my my thoughts about them. Love them, hate them, let's get into it. First, let's talk about eyeshadow pencils because these were kind of my first love from this collection. They're the products that I first tried that inspired me to try more from Nudestix. They have magnetic luminous pencils that have like a slightly shimmery, sometimes metallic texture, and then they have magnetic matte, which as you could probably tell are entirely matte eyeshadow pencils. Both of them are like the perfect eyeshadow pencil. They're soft enough to be very blendable and buildable across the eye, but they're a formula that dries down to a completely powdery finish. So I don't have super oily eyelids, so this might not be the case for everyone. And I don't have dry eyelids, so I don't find I need a hydrating primer under there, but I personally find that I do not need a primer and I don't need to set any of these with powder shadows over top. Although you can, if you want to use these as a more colorful base for your eyeshadows, you don't have to. So many days, today in fact, I am wearing one shade across my eyes. It's just super easy to apply directly to the lid. Take a kind of rounder, fluffier brush to blend it all out, and then you're good to go. It's just the perfect eyeshadow pencil for a one and done look. Now they are on the chubbier side, so it's not like you're gonna get a ton of precision if you're looking for like a very thin, precise liner on the upper waterline or on the upper lash line, but they can definitely get your waterline. They create a nice smoky cat eye if you wanna apply a little in your outer corner and drag it out with an angled liner brush. That's totally within the realm of possibility with these, but because they are a little chunkier, I wouldn't look to them for precision, but they pretty much do just about everything else. Ooh, and before moving on, the one thing I want to talk about, kind of a little secret or maybe tip for how I like to buy these, because I clearly have a lot of them and they're not cheap individually, but what I've found is that the sets are the best bargain you will ever find. Yes, they can run you anywhere between 50, 60. I think the Nude Beach set was 75 bucks because you got a face product in there as well, but each set comes with like no less than 5 eyeshadow pencils, all of which are almost the size of a full-size product, like within fractions of an ounce. And yet you're getting, you know, 5 for 50 when an individual pencil, a full-size individual pencil is like 20, 22, maybe around that ballpark area. So it's just such a good deal to buy these in those sets if and when you can. But if one of these shades strikes your fancy that you're seeing swatched here in the video, totally go for it. But in case you're wanting to sample a few different shades, absolutely look for those sets out there. Okay, now onto the lip pencils. Well, technically lip and cheek pencils, which makes them that much better because you know I love a multitasker. So I have 2 of the finishes available. I think there are more than that, but for right now, I have the Intense Matte formula, a couple shades from there, and then I also have a shade from the Gel formula, which is just a little bit more of a glossy, balmy sort of look, but still meant for use on the lips and cheeks. Each of these shades does a really good job at both performing on the lips and the cheeks. I was a little bit skeptical because sometimes lip products, especially if they're a little too waxy, they can move your makeup around underneath, and for the most part, I haven't had that happen with these. Occasionally, it might not mesh well with a foundation that I have. Nothing comes to the top of my head because I've been using these for forever, but occasionally I will find that I'm using a new foundation that I haven't used in a while with these before, and I'll go apply them on top and they just won't quite sit right over top, but for the most part, they're super easy to blend in on the cheek area, although they do have a slightly thicker consistency compared to a face product I'm going to talk about later. And they're also overall much more pigmented, so a little bit goes a long way with these, especially when you're working with them on your cheeks. So start with a little, blend it out, and then go from there. Otherwise, I have ended up with some seriously blushed and bronzed cheeks. Ooh, and I also want to call out that the gel color, it doesn't dry down completely on the cheeks, like certainly not as much as the matte finishes do. It stays a little bit dewy, not sticky, not overly tacky, but I was pretty surprised that it didn't move my foundation around on underneath. Kind of like I would have expect a balmy sort of product too, right? You're gonna see it transfer from your lips, so naturally I thought it would kind of mess up your base product or whatever you got going on underneath, and pretty impressed to say that it did not. So I totally recommend both the matte and the gel formula of these. Alrighty, now moving on to the all over face color sticks. I have one that is kind of a blushy bronzer and one that's more of a highlighter. The blushy bronzer one is in the shade In the Nude. This is like a light to medium nude with a pretty strong soft pink undertone to it. And in comparison to the lip and cheek products I just talked about, these are a little bit thicker and less pigmented. So if you are a little bit worried about going in with like a bold, you know, some of these lip shades like the bold reds and stuff, it's a little too intense for you, this would be a really good option to use instead because it's way more buildable and kind of easier to work with in that way if you're worried about overdoing it. And you can also, I mean, I'm assuming from the name, although I haven't, use this on your eyes and your lips as well. The texture to me, I don't know that I would try this without a primer on my eyes because it's a little bit waxier, dries down to a little bit less of a powder than the eye products, but I'm definitely sure you could. In fact, I think I saw on Instagram a video where they do kind of a monochromatic face using one of these guys, but I really love this shade. And as far as the texture of the product goes, it doesn't disturb, you know, for being a cream, it doesn't disturb the product underneath. I actually just used this over the Makeup Forever powder foundation and it didn't disturb it at all. So it plays well with powders and the lasting power is nice. I didn't find it fading or sinking into my skin throughout the day either. Then the other shade I have is a highlighter. This is the shade Illuminati. And by the way, the packaging these come in, you have the stick on one end, but then it actually also comes with a brush here on the other end. I'm not a super fan of these. I find that they're a little bit too stiff for the way I like to apply my product. I prefer something that buffs. Otherwise, this little guy on the end can kind of move my product around. I like a fluffier brush that I can pat and buff products in that way to minimize the movement of my foundation or any of my base products. And this I find, you know, especially if you have a heavier base, can move products around if you're buffing like that. But it works. It's not the worst tool certainly that I've ever had on a product. But back to the Illuminati shade. So I picked this up because it is basically a clear base with this beautiful purpley pink iridescent shift to it. You know I can't resist an iridescent shift. That's exactly what this is. So at some angles it looks like a balm, some angles it looks like this beautiful soft pinky purple highlight. While it doesn't dry totally down to a powder finish, especially, you know, not like the In the Nude shade that I just talked about for the face, doesn't stay super tacky or, you know, make anything transfer all over the place either. That said, if you find that this all over face stick texture is a little bit too heavy or too, you know, rich for you, they do have a separate highlight line. And so I wonder if that is why they came out with these, because when I saw they launched the Magnetic Nude Glimmers, I was a little puzzled since it seemed like they already had highlights within their collection. But more recently they came out with these. I only have the shade, this golden shade called 24 Karat Goddess, and it is more of a thin liquid texture. It comes with this doe foot applicator. I just like to apply it directly to the tops of my cheekbones, blend it out super quickly with my hands. Because it's thinner, you run less of a risk of moving your product around underneath. And then this does dry to a powdery finish, so you don't have to worry about looking like dewy or wet or feeling dewy, wet, balmy throughout the day. This dries down completely, but I do find it might have a little bit less of a shimmer or of an effect to it than the all over facial highlighters. So you just gotta, you know, decide which of these textures is gonna work best for you, what effect do you actually want within your makeup, because they're both great, but I do think they serve different purposes for people who have just different product preferences. Next up is a product that I really don't feel strongly one way or the other about. It's just kind of a meh, middle of the road for me, and actually our segue into the products that don't work for me. This is the Rock and Roller Easy Eyeliner Ink in the shade Bronze Patina. Now I will say I love the shade. I actually do feel very strongly and positively about the shade Bronze Patina. It's just a very striking brown eyeliner that has a metallic finish, so it stands out compared to like your normal deep brown eyeliner. I don't know, it's just a nice change of pace. However, it comes with that roller end that MAC kind of came out with and popularized a couple of years ago. I never really got into that craze. It didn't strike me as something that would be super beneficial or helpful in applying eyeliner, so I didn't really jump on that bandwagon. And as I try it now, I find that I didn't experience a major learning curve when using this, but I also didn't find it was hugely helpful. The ball or the wheel in it is very small, so it is a little bit easier to get a more precise wing, but I think they could have put it on a calligraphy or a felt tip liner and had the same effect. The liner itself lasts a good long time, so it does have that going for it. But other than that, I'm just kind of like, you don't need it. It's a nice to have, but it's not like the best thing ever. Finally, let's talk about the products that I am not as excited about just because they did not work out for me. First up is the concealer pencil. The shade that I got, in case you're interested, is Light 3, but I just found that this, although it feels creamy, it was hard to build coverage, it was patchy to build coverage, and then it ultimately ended up being relatively dry in my under eye area, or really anywhere I wanted to touch up around my face. So I just wasn't really pleased with how that laid on my skin. And then the other thing that I was not a fan of is the lash lengthening mascara. I think this just comes in like a black shade, doesn't seem to have a shade on it, but I think it's the formula for me itself. When I applied it, it takes a while to layer up, but once you do, it's really lengthening, very flattering and lengthening to your lashes, and it separates them really nicely, adds a hint of curl, but I would say mostly great for lengthening and separating. However, it like doesn't dry. It kind of stays sticky and tacky, and not that it transfers everywhere as a result, but what I noticed is I had an itchy eye one day and I was like scratching it, you know, as one does, kind of at the base of my lashes. And when I looked up and like finally found myself in a mirror, I noticed that it looked like I had 4 lashes because all of my lashes had clumped together in itching them right at the lash line. So it's like it just never completely dries down. So your lashes kind of stick together, or they have a tendency to, and it's harder to separate them. Ooh, almost dropped it. If you go in with, you know, another coat, then they start getting spidery and it's hard to unclump them. And so it just is not a formula that works for me. I do love the effect it has on my lashes, but only if I'm, you know, not planning on touching or scratching or itching my eyes throughout the day. So fortunately, I have a heck of a lot more wins from Nudestix than I do products that didn't work out for me, but I hope no matter what, this video was helpful for you in seeing kind of the array of swatches of all the products that I have and hearing my thoughts on them. Hope it was helpful in case you're wanting to try anything from Nudestix. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.